I Am Woman, Watch Me Grow by Margaret Clower. Lake Cathy, 2445. Narrated by Chloe Schwank. Free at last. It was the end of 1970. Year 10 exams were done and dusted, and so were my school days. Or so I thought. At last I was freed from the daily loathing of school I had endured since my first day in kindergarten. Mum and I were walking home from the corner store when I saw an opportunity to broach a subject that had been on my mind since I passed through those school gates for the last time. "Mum, I think I want to go back to school." Mum froze, her face paling as she replied, "You want to what?" Those few short, sharp words, spoken in shock, accompanied by a creasing of her forehead, confirmed higher education was not an option for me. I knew she was worried about how she would afford to keep me at school for a further 2 years. Quickly I changed the subject and we continued our walk home, neither of us mentioning another word on the subject. Earlier, I had walked the same path with my father when he asked, "What do you want to do when you leave school?" I guess I answered, "I don't know," because at that time I really didn't know what I could do. He offered 2 options. You can either go to secretarial college, or you can work in a chemist. Teaching and nursing were about the only other options open to young girls in a country town during the 1970s. But they weren't for me because Dad would have had to fund my tuition and support me until I graduated. It was not on his agenda. My older sister didn't fare any better. Aged just 15, Dad plucked her from school one day and drafted her to the office of his favorite sporting club, where he was a devoted lifetime member. 3 decades later, I watched proudly as she was admitted to the bar as a lawyer. Dad had passed away by then, but finally she could say, "See, Dad? I did it." Dad believed that girls did not need a career and should not aspire to one because they would just get married, have babies, do housework, raise children, and remain financially dependent on their husbands. Boys, on the other hand, needed a trade or a career to support their families. When my older brother earned a scholarship to university, Dad couldn't hide his pride. Among his close-knit circle of friends, he referred to his eldest son as the professor. Dad had other biased beliefs. Married women should not work and did not need to learn to drive. At election time, they should follow their husband's lead in casting their vote. Daughters did not need to be included in their parents' wills because they had husbands to support them. Only boys needed money, not that Dad had any form of wealth to leave his kids, boys or girls. We didn't own a home or a car. Any cash he saved was tightly guarded as his drinking money. As a returned soldier, "It is a man's right to drink," we often heard. His growing stash of cash was squirreled away in his fat, fraying wallet. Banks could not be trusted, in his opinion. Once it was decided that secretarial college was the best path for me, I set about becoming the best secretary I could be. To my total surprise, Dad bought me a brand new portable typewriter to practice on. I graduated from college with honors and secured a job as a stenographer. I was disappointed when Dad did not see any merit in my achievement and did not attend my graduation. 1 week after my 20th birthday, I married, had 2 babies, and became a devoted stay-at-home mum until our savings ran out. During a rare phone call from Dad in which he asked how I was, I reluctantly confessed that we were struggling financially. "Why are you worrying about this? You have a husband. Let him worry about it," he reasoned. My husband was not good with money, so I bore full responsibility for making ends meet. Feeling guilty about the idea of returning to work and abandoning my children, there was little I could do but offer babysitting services to make it through each week. I earned just $10 per day to care for 2 extra kids. As our situation grew worse, I sought part-time work outside the home. Like most working mothers of my era, I juggled work, children, after-school activities, homework, cleaning, cooking, and the weekly budget. That was the norm then for many women. Working mothers were frowned upon, labelled as selfish, neglectful, and uncaring. They were unjustifiably accused of stealing jobs from younger single girls. That was then. Now, when I tell my story, I am met with looks of surprise, shock, and disbelief from younger women. "You mean you didn't have a choice of what you wanted to be?" most ask with a frown. Some find the idea incomprehensible. Today, we are so lucky in Australia that our children are free to choose their own paths in life. Girls can decide on careers that were typically once only held by men. No longer are females labelled the weaker sex. Sadly, some still work for lower salaries than their counterparts, but the fight for equality is not over yet and may even, one day, be won. I applaud young women working in stereotypical male gender roles. They are not afraid to roll up their sleeves and get dirty. No longer are they pigeonholed into jobs imposed by archaic rules. And they are thriving, successfully managing study, rewarding careers, finances, home and families like the capable and hard-working people they are. When Helen Reddy's powerful voice boomed across the globe, "I am woman, watch me grow," she empowered and encouraged women worldwide to dig deep and find their own voices. The end. Let the Flowers Fade by Jane Munro. Mudgee, 2850. Narrated by Chloe Schwank. The whiteboard at the foot of my bed shows a list of mostly mundane items. Nearly all have a line drawn through them. I've returned my library books, paid the power bill, given my sheet music to Helen. Neville collected my chooks a few weeks ago. The remaining things are now the responsibility of others. In particular, the final item in the list, which I've abbreviated to spare tender feelings, FUNL, funeral. The ambulance people want us to leave by the back door, the front steps of my old house being too steep for the gurney. I'm glad, because it means I'll see my garden one last time. I haven't been able to get out there recently. Wrapped up against the chill September air, I'm reclining like an ancient queen as we make our careful procession down my cracked concrete path. My daughter, walking beside, looks stricken. There's my tottering hills hoist, draped with what, to an unsympathetic eye, probably looks like so much faded, bunting-trailing tresses of Spanish moss. These are plants that seem to live on air, and which I've watched, with quiet admiration, for a dozen years. If no one disturbs them, they'll keep going all the way down to the ground. Crossing the shaded courtyard, we pass the water plants in the big stone urn. My water iris will bloom soon. I can see young pale purple buds forming amongst the tall strappy leaves. But they'll be too late for me. I had hoped. Winter has hung around so long. I looked forward to the first splash of rich purple every spring. Now, out of the shade and into the flower garden, my eyes recoil from the dazzling sky. I ask the attendants to wait for a moment until my vision returns. Then I can see the gold and bronze blossoms of the French marigolds, and my favourite since I was a young child, the nasturtiums, their bright yellow and orange flowers dotted among apple-green leaves. I see the amaranths, magenta catkins, like pendant ropes strung with round beads, the plant's name derived from the ancient Greek word meaning immortal. This dazzling vista works like a shot in the arm, and momentarily life bursts through. Beyond these beds of ornamentals, I'm passing beneath the leafless grey latticed canopy of my jacaranda. It's still winter for the jacaranda. A great ache grips my chest. I remember November and the much-anticipated budburst, the highlight of each year. I remember enchanted afternoon tea parties here with many friends. A jacaranda in full bloom is transcendent. Barefoot children frolicked here on the deep mauve carpet, bewitched by the luxurious petal fall. They really did frolic. And while the children played, their parents would linger in the warm November dusk, making music, drinking tea, sipping wine, waiting for the blaze of sunset. Too soon we are bumping over the uneven ground of the grassy slope, heading down towards my front gate. And there's the ambulance waiting, its rear doors standing open. We pass the vegetable garden where I toiled happily for decades, growing salad vegetables in summer, broad beans and carrots in winter, year on year, working to keep myself strong and, I believed, healthy. Always offering departing visitors a couple of cucumbers, a lettuce, some herbs wrapped in damp newspaper. Maybe an egg or two from my Isa Browns. We move on. Eyes left, and there are the echiums, each with its single great torpedo-shaped flower, towering above clusters of silvery grey leaves, each leaning a little, this way or that. They always make me smile, imagining a guard of honour formed by tipsy alien life forms. Not to everyone's taste, in the garden, but I've always felt an affinity with these awkwardly exuberant plants. They will self-seed for many years, popping up in unexpected spots wherever the earth has been disturbed as each autumn approaches. Too soon, I'm through the gate. It's not physically possible for me to look back. I won't see my garden again. An earthquake of loss engulfs my whole body, but I will not cry. In the hospice, family and friends visit and we talk. I tire quickly and find myself ready for them to leave. One old friend I actually did ask to leave. She seemed hurt. Most visitors bring flowers. Now they're arranged on every available surface in my small room. I ask people to rearrange the furniture to make sure I can see all of them easily from my bed. As my hospice days unexpectedly become weeks, an annoying orderly wants to tidy up the flowers. They're wilting and they're smelly, she insists. I think, like most of us in this place. I say, no, leave them, just change the water. My sense of smell has gone, and my eyesight is diminishing. I can't move without assistance, but I can still see shapes and colours. I want to watch the flowers as they fade. I'm not ready to say goodbye to flowers. The end.